Dopamine swipe, dopamine swipe. Followers, likes, double tap. Now they control your life.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the 817 podcast. Thanks for joining us this week. If you listened last week, we had two great interviews with Dr. Jared Williams, the city council member, and Austin from Nowtown, covering a lot of development that's happening in Fort Worth. And this week, we get to continue that with another interview.
Yeah, this has really been great, and all the feedback we've been receiving from you guys, really appreciate it. I got to hang out with Austin this weekend. That was cool, meeting him in person. He's exactly what he was online. Same kind of energy. Smart, great. It was awesome hanging out with him. Really excited for what we have this time. I mean, as a frog, I mean, and you were a business guy. We're going to be sitting here with President Daniel Pullin, the new TCU president. He's only been at the job as a new president at TCU, Texas Christian University, for 11, 12 days, depending on when you're listening to this pod. And so we get to sit down with him as really one of the first kind of outlets to have a real one-on-one conversation with him. Before he was the TCU president, he was the dean of the Neely Business School. And prior to joining TCU's Neely School of Business, Pullin was the dean at Price College of Business at the University of Oklahoma as an alumni, Boomer Sooner. And so he also served as a vice president and has experience in private equity, global consulting with McKinsey & Co. So we're going to get a cool and great depth. He is a North Texan. He is from North Texas. He took the Neely job just 4 years ago. And so he's going to have a cool, fresh perspective and enough depth to give us TCU's future, but then also what to expect from Fort Worth. So here's President Pullin.
So my Fort Worth story, has actually been kind of a lifelong one. Probably begins with just admiration for the community and the strong leadership that it's benefited from over the years. I actually grew up across the way over in Plano, Texas, and one of our favorite things to do, certainly, by the time we can get in automobiles without, parental supervision, was to drive over to Fort Worth and TC's campus and some of the things in the stockyards and, Sundance Square and, so many of the amazing amenities and people that make it what I think is one of the top towns, top cities in the country to live, work, play, raise a family, and aspire to whoever you're meant to be. And so I think that's kind of the terroir of Fort Worth. And I've had just that admiration, for several decades now. And I guess more recently, had a chance to move to Fort Worth when I was recruited to be the John V. Roach Dean at TCU's Neely School of Business. That happened about 4 years ago. I was the dean at another institution and had also admired TCU from afar. I knew how strong that business school was. I had to compete as a dean at another place, each and every day for the top students and the top faculty and the top, employer relationships and sort of the, this region of the country. And so I knew just because I, having to go up toe to toe with the Neely School for so long, I knew how strong it was. And so to have the chance to, if you can't beat them, join them sometimes, and to have a chance to move my career to Fort Worth was just a really great, dimension in my career. And 4 years later, here we are. I've got a new job around campus and just so proud of the chance that I've had and the momentum that we're all enjoying right now in Fort Worth and certainly at the University TCU.
Can you talk more about your aspirations or ambitions as a person? Like, did you ever see yourself becoming a president of a university? Like, what did that? I can't. How'd you get here?
Yeah. It's hey, life's random, guys. It is. You never know. I mean, I don't know if there is a playbook or here's the encyclopedia or here are the 12 steps to deandom or being president or whatever. I mean, that exists. Let me know. If it doesn't, maybe I should write it. Yeah. But, do a little side hustle. But One never knows, right? I mean, I think life, and kind of who I am has always been someone who wanted to create optionality. Like, okay, if I do this, if I participate in this, hopefully that will open more doors and windows than it closes, and to create, the capacity to choose and to be discerning about how one invests the time and energy they've been given, certainly professionally. And so, I started off after my undergraduate career. I started off in strategy consulting, and I thought for a long time, I'd be serving, clients, which very large companies all over the world, and how interesting it might be for a career to be in the boardrooms and to be, side by side with the chief executive officers trying to make those decisions on kind of the future of business, and so that was really interesting. But that fell. At some level, you fly in, you drop off a PowerPoint, slide deck, say, here's where you got to go, and then you go on to the next thing, and that creates a lot of diversity of thought, but and diversity of knowledge. But it also, you never stick around and see sort of those ideas implemented and that sort of that tangible impact. And so I then moved into private equity investing. So typically, traditionally buying and selling companies, sometimes starting new companies. It's kind of how I got into entrepreneurship. And I really, really enjoyed that. But at one point in that journey, there was a change in control of one of the companies I was working with, and so I had an opportunity to go to a different company or try something completely different. And that was in the spirit of creating optionality. So I kind of took a pause from working in private equity to join institution of higher education and help them launch and expand an entrepreneurship program. Which I thought was really, really exciting. It was connected to what I was doing in the private sector. It was a chance to work every day with students, to be in the classroom, to see, ideas and companies that needed to exist, but yet didn't, and bring that to life. And something magical happened there. I fell in love with the classroom. I fell in love with the opportunity to have direct and scaled impact. I fell in love with the opportunity to have an impact beyond myself, beyond my institution, and actually see the benefit happening in the communities around me. And so I was pretty much hooked at that point, and we just the scope of entrepreneurship to ascending levels of responsibility. And then about 2013, was asked to take over the dean position at another place, and ran that school for about 6 years in a really great and satisfying way. And then I've been here for the last 4, running the Neely School, before taking this new job about, I guess, 11 days ago. So no, right? Life's random, but all you can do is work really, really hard. Hopefully bring a lot of energy to the table, give it your all, give everybody that's depending on you your best. And, I've been lucky to see windows and doors, swing wide open, and then it's just my job to jump through them. And I feel like I've jumped through the best one right here at TCU, and really look forward to investing deeply in this opportunity, because I can see that impact, that direct influence, and the progress of now, 12,000 plus students each and every day. It's a remarkable opportunity that I have in front of me.
It's wild to hear 12,000. Like I went through TCU, through the Honors College and Neely right on the tail end of the Rose Bowl, and got to see like the growth of the school there. And we were like 7,500 back then. How has TCU being in the national championship, going through the national college football playoff, like, have y'all already started to see the impact of what's now 12,000 potentially growing even more for a school?
Yeah, I mean, it's just math. You get more eyeballs watching more instances of the TCU logo, and that logo being, bound up in success, athletic success, and then what we're able to do to, also communicate a narrative around our academic success. And that's the other thing. We talk about rankings in, football or basketball or whatever, let's talk about rankings, in our academic programs. For example, TCU, our Neely School just last year moved in the top 20 business schools in the country for the first time in our history. And that was the realization of a 50-year goal, and just like football, I mean, a lot of people, I've been flying all over the place at these bowl games and other things. And, people who don't know TCU well, they keep coming up to me and saying, hey, wow, how unexpected, is this like an overnight success? Could you have ever imagined this? And I'm like, Yeah, it's an overnight success, a 40-year one,
Yeah.
because a lot of smart people, 4 decades ago got in a room and made a commitment to how we were going to build a great university and the role of athletics in creating that narrative and that visibility and that credibility that we can compete and win on the field and off the field. And so it's that vision and that strategy. And that commitment, even when times are lean or where it doesn't seem to make sometimes that's the hard decision, is to keep going and to make that additional investment and that additional resource or that additional facility or whatever. God, the will of the leadership of TCU, and I'm talking about everybody before me, not me, right? I'm 11 days into this job, but everybody before me, to cast that vision and stick to it through all types of times and market fluctuations and economic downturn and global challenges and what have you. It was an overnight success that has been planned for, to create that forum, to create that opportunity for 40 years. And that tells you everything you need to know about this institution and how deeply the leadership and the alumni and the trustees and the administrators and the faculty and the staff and our student leaders all care about this place and want to see this great place get greater for the next 40 years.
Yeah, that's actually I think a great next question to this. As the leader of TCU now, as a stakeholder in Fort Worth, what are the conversations, things we need to be thinking about today 40 years from now, we're like, hey, we've won that thing, we've advanced up something, we see this getting better. What do you see as, a lot of leaders listen to our pod, what do you think about the next kind of 40 years we should be talking about?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's, let's double down on what I think is a demonstrated strength, which is the fact that we like each other. We actually work together in this town and think that's kind of cool. I've seen other communities where, the town and the gown, right? The city and the university don't always see eye to eye, or they see, they're kind of, they're all searching for, their portion of the same pie, and they can't think of, a better way to work together. Well, that's certainly not the case in Fort Worth, and certainly not the case with TCU. I think that those relationships are strong. We just have to be as thoughtful about how do we maximize those. And that's, obviously formal city leadership and formal university leadership, but it's also the business community. It's also our civic leaders, everybody that I think has been a part of making Fort Worth what it is. We really have a chance. I mean, Fort Worth definitely on the map. I don't know if we're now maybe the 12th largest city. There's no signs of that stopping. It seems like it's a community that's we're growing, but we're growing in the right way, in a thoughtful way. And there's so many projects we could talk about around town that are very, very exciting. I personally think the university, I mean, if why I'm in this game is to, improve the lives, maybe most directly of these 12,000 students and position them to be the leaders we need. It's, and they're the ultimate instrument of our impact at TCU. Well, let's make sure that we are embodying them with an appreciation for what, a college educated professional can mean to a community and its ability to flourish. And so I'm really, really proud of what we're doing across all of our schools. College of Education, right? We can talk about, the role we might play to continue to strengthen, public education in Fort Worth and broader Tarrant County and beyond. We can talk about what we're doing, obviously, in the Neely School of Business, right? Through internships with local entrepreneurs, and how we're, taking what we're learning about successful entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial ventures and sharing that with the broader community, all while our students are getting experiential learning, demystifying what the challenges and opportunities are like to be an entrepreneur, what it really takes, and the importance of entrepreneurs being in arm in arm with the communities that they serve, and how those things are kind of reciprocal and reinforcing to on and on and on, right? And so even from my perspective and kind of what I do every day, I am going to carve out a significant time to be very, very visible in the community, to make sure that I'm listening a lot more than I'm proclaiming about what the opportunities and challenges might be. And, I definitely want to work with the city council. I want to work with the mayor. I want to work with the Fort Worth Chamber. I want to work with all the chambers in Fort Worth. I want to really make sure that if there is a way for TCU, buying through our faculty and their leadership, our students and the love and care and commitment they have to servant leadership, through our alumni, through our corporate sponsors, that we're catalyzing this community in a way that maybe only Fort Worth can, because we already have a culture of connectivity and a commitment to working together.
Can you give, as you look at like the also the growth of other universities in the city, what does that collaboration competition look like? Especially now you also add Aggie A&M to the mix too. Yeah. How are you looking at all of that on like your, I guess, strategic analysis about kind of partnerships and other institutions?
Yeah, well, I think just like I was talking about, maybe other communities where various components of them unfortunately bring a fixed pie mentality to the table and how limiting that can be. I just don't think that's Fort Worth, and I know that's not TCU. And so for me, I think it's let's get more education into Fort Worth. Let's get more education into North Texas. I mean, that is a good thing, and anything that TCU can do to, in a positive way, agitate the ascension of additional outlets for education, whether it's higher education in a traditional sense, or some of the plans that we're hearing from other institutions, how they want to educate a non-traditional segment of our citizenry, and on and on and on. I mean, I think that's a good thing. And then what makes it a great thing is when we start working together right on those boundaries, like, okay, brand X and brand Y and TCU, we all bring different strengths to the table. And but it takes that interdisciplinary collaboration. It takes that diversity of thought and diversity of people to actually tackle this challenge or capitalize on this opportunity in the best right way, because we're looking at it with stronger eyes and more experience and different points of view that get it right for more people. And so you mentioned A&M. I mean, we're in great conversations with their leadership, and have been, right. Not just because they're a bunch of, fancy headlines and a big capital commitment to the community, which I think is fabulous. But they have been for, at least the 4 years that I've been here. We have a medical school. They have a law school. We don't have a law school. They don't have a medical school, right? Their business school isn't in Fort Worth, to my knowledge. We have a great business school right here, right? And so just take the intersection of those three ideas: the business of healthcare, the legal implications of healthcare, how important that's going to be to the future of our community, right? If you don't have a healthy citizenry, for example, it's hard to get up and go to work and to drive economic development and generate tax dollars that get reinvested in core services like education and public safety and on and on and on, right? So I think our universities, and I'm not just limiting the conversation to universities, right? There are a lot of other educational outlets that are at the table, but I think that we just have that culture to think differently in this part of the country, in our town, and to work together to, I think, positive ends that none of us could actually get to alone. And so I'm thrilled to see the scaling of education. I think that's good for every citizen, and I can't wait to watch what happens over the next 5, 10, and 40 years in this very, very, very special community.
Yeah, and it means a lot to like keep talent here, and so like getting students going through TCU and Neely to call Fort Worth home, become entrepreneurs and invest in the city. And like traditionally, Fort Worth has been a lot of, Alcon, BNSF, Lockheed Martin, and Bell. But the state of entrepreneurship has grown a ton over the past decade here. Like, what do you see as kind of the state of entrepreneurship in the city, and where does TCU fit into that? And even like, what are some newer companies or newer industries that you're seeing students get placed into for internships or right out of college, being talent going into working jobs in the city?
Yeah, I mean, what's beautiful is that it's, it's like, Fort Worth is winning. It's like being in a pie eating contest where the prize for first place is more pie, because we're just growing, and there's never enough talent to match our opportunity, and I think that's benefiting our students, and I think it's making the role of universities as one outlet for education even more critical across all categories of companies. And so, yeah, our placement rates at traditional large, let's call them, Fortune 500 companies, many of the names that you mentioned, has never been stronger. We've never placed more students. And what's interesting is when you're in a marketplace where you're opportunity long and talent short, which we
Mhm.
are. What that means is that the traditional roles that we're going to, people with 2 and 5 years of experience out of undergrad, are actually going to, fresh recruits following graduation.
Yeah.
The roles that we're going to, those entry level, graduates, 5 years ago, are actually going to seniors and juniors and sophomores, and they're getting more real world experience early in the cycle. I used to be a dean at another university, and one of my big goals was to ensure that every single student had one internship by the time they graduated. And I thought that was pretty noble because it strengthens their job narrative and it gives them a sense to, what do they like and what are they good at and what do they want to aspire to, and vice versa from the employer's perspective. It kind of de-risks the hire. Well, last year I had them run the numbers here at TCU's Neely School of Business, and the average number of internships for our graduating seniors was 3.1. Not one, not 0.8, 3.1. And so that means you've seen 3 different companies, at least 3 different cultures, 3 different leadership styles, maybe 3 different industries. And then you kind of do the factorial of all of that. And before you know it, you have seen a really multi-faceted view of business in this case, and what's right for you. And I think that's why the traditional employers and other employers are thirsting for the opportunity to hire TC graduates. Now, what is really interesting is that it's not just the big dogs or the publicly traded companies or what have you. It's that and such an amazing response from small and medium enterprises here in Fort Worth looking for student talent, whether it's intern or converting those interns into full-time placement, or increasingly, it's actually our student talent becoming those entrepreneurs. I think in the last couple of years, they were telling me we've started 41 different companies out of TCU, typically student entrepreneurs who are catching fire on an idea, or they've met somebody at one of our great coffee shops around town, or however it happened, and are, taking that plunge. And that's been really, really exciting to see. In fact, our entrepreneurship major in the last 2 years has grown by over 100%.
Wow.
So the trends for students understanding not only the pathway to starting, say, a company, but the entrepreneurial skill set and the entrepreneurial mindset that actually benefits you, regardless of what you do with your career, right? The importance of being creative, the importance of challenging the status quo, seeing around corners, of thinking critically, of being able to work with a variety of different people, not like yourself in every case. The ability to motivate others to go with you, right? Because you're selling something that doesn't exist, and that's harder to get people to buy or to participate in or join or fund or whatever action you're asking them to do. But to be able to compellingly, through communication and collaboration and sometimes empathy, get people to move with you is a skill that people will pay for, whether they're going to help you start your company or they're going to hire you, to join the business development team or the finance team or the marketing team or whatever it is. In fact, the starting salaries for our entrepreneurship majors actually exceed the average out of TCU's Neely School of Business as a whole. So it's not just like, oh, entrepreneurship is this fad. It's not. We've been doing this for over a quarter century. It's here to stay. It's bound up in the history of Fort Worth, and it's going to be bound up in the future of Fort Worth if you really think about it, right? Go around town, look at all the buildings and all the names on them, right? More often than not, that name is of an entrepreneur. In fact, I have a class I teach every fall at TCU where we take one day and we walk the students around campus and we point to all the buildings. And you don't even have to get far beyond the Neely School of Business complex before the point's made, right? We've got 5 buildings. One is Tandy, entrepreneur. One is Sumner, entrepreneur. One is Hayes, entrepreneur. One is Shattuck, entrepreneur. And the 5th is Smith, also an entrepreneur. Right? Entrepreneurs change lives. They change communities, and they do so in a lasting way. And at least in TCU's case, they change universities. And so why we wouldn't lean in with full voice, with full effort, with full attention, and scale entrepreneurship. Forget the business school. I love the business school, but I love TCU, right? I love TCU, the institution, and our ability to spread entrepreneurship and innovation horizontally across the whole campus, because all frogs have careers, doesn't matter what your undergraduate major is. And your ability to get your talents in your field of choice to the marketplace, right, has everything to do with your ability to generate impact in your career and life. And an inability to do that means that your talent is left on the shelf. and that's to me, that's a miss. And we're not going to miss at TCU, and we're not missing at TCU, because just like the way Fort Worth and all of city leadership and community leadership and education leadership and on, just like Fort Worth's working together, so is TCU across the four corners of our campus, and that's what's really distancing us from the pack in many ways.
Yeah, I have a two-part question there. I appreciate all that insight there. I have a two-part question. When we look at entrepreneurship today in Fort Worth, how often are you in like Alliance, Texas? How often are you we talk about a quarter century ago. I mean, that whole place up there was just not even really a thing, and now it's really, we like to call it our Frisco and Tarrant County. Like it's its own energy. So, but it is in the city. So how often you see yourself up there, and how often do you think about TCU's relationship with Alliance, Texas?
Every day. I mean, I don't know if I'm up there every day, but I'm thinking about that relationship every day. Right. And it's, we can just go down the list of the names. I actually was teaching an executive MBA class last weekend, and we took a field trip up to BNSF and and all the surrounding areas, and we got everybody on a bus, and we were pointing out the economic miracle that I believe Alliance is, and all the companies that are there. And it's just like the TCU football team. This was not an overnight success. This was multi-decades in the planning. It's an entrepreneur, right? The Pro family, amongst others, an entrepreneur with a vision of something that didn't exist that needed to, and then motivated people to go with them to create over an extended period of time, right? We had a lot of ups and downs economically during that vision period, but to stick with it. And then, boom, look, well, here are, 10 or more Fortune 500 companies that have installations in and around, the Alliance complex and in our county and in our, city. And it's just really another proof point that entrepreneurship, can change the world, and it does. So yeah, I'm up there quite a bit. I think that we have incredible opportunities and to be providers of lifelong education to the workforce amongst those communities. Our Tandy Executive Education program at TCU is working with most of those companies in both open enrollment, skill building workshops, as well as a variety of custom programs that their senior leaders say, hey, our workforce needs to learn about this in this way in the context of our industry or in the context of our company's culture. And so whether it's me personally, which it actually happens quite frequently, or other Great Frog faculty and staff leaders, we want to be bound up in sort of the life and times and day to day of what's happening at Alliance and what's happening really in any pocket of our community. I think, if you name a neighborhood, and we've probably got a program at TCU that's having a positive impact, as those neighborhoods are having a positive impact on our students and our faculty as we, collectively educate ourselves in how best to work together to not only drive business, but what business can mean to a society.
Yeah, that's my part two. Sorry, Jim. Yeah. That's my part two there is you're a Plano kid, you said. And another thing we talk about is the relationship Fort Worth within the entire Metroplex. And one of our other statements we like to say is there's this DFW and there's this acceleration of DFP, Dallas, Frisco, Plano. And those economic differences there, it feels they're really grooving over there, compared to us in some ways. How do you look at the whole Metroplex and that relationship as we expand out?
Yeah, I mean, I think at some level, it's really good that we have different philosophies in different pockets. I mean, I think that's part of the tapestry of a thriving region, a thriving metro area, a thriving community. So, I mean, if there's a Dallas way and a Frisco way and a Plano way and a Prosper way and an Argyle way and a Fort Worth, well, great, but there's probably a little something for everybody. I think the point is, from a regional perspective, we want to create the right features and benefits and circumstances for anybody to find the right either city or neighborhood or home for their business or their family or whatever dimension they're seeking in life. So I think that variety is a pretty darn good thing. And I mean, I'm totally biased because I've been in the place most of my life. I can't imagine why you wouldn't choose North Texas, let's just call it North Texas, as the place to move your company or start your company and build your company. I mean, I think we've got the best intangibles, and I mean, we've got great tax laws, we've got great business leadership support, we've got great community support, we've got a growing collection of institutions of higher education that are operating at the intersection of the academy and industry. We're working really, really hard to strengthen our public school systems, and there's a lot of initiatives going on in that respect, and certainly pockets of North Texas have certainly made important strides, and I know we're committed to doing that right here in Fort Worth as well. So I feel like business leaders, just to speak to that narrow audience, business leaders are running out of excuses to build the great companies of the world right here in North Texas.
Continuing kind of the conversation around like entrepreneurship and vision, I mean, Neely, even offering an entrepreneurship major program is unique. I mean, I went through supply chain 10 years ago. Nobody knew what a supply chain was. Now everybody knows the word supply chain. What are some of the like either classes or programs that y'all look at based on trends in entrepreneurship and in Fort Worth where you're like, oh, I feel like we need to start to get more of a hand in that. We need to design something around this to prepare our students for going out into the modern business world?
Yeah, so there's a bunch, right? And we're a comprehensive university, so we probably got our fingers in the pie, pretty much all of it. But some of the things that we're really watching, and the reason we're watching it is because we're listening to the marketplace, right? It's not like Daniel or anybody else saying, "Oh, this is what we're going to do," because I'm interested in it. It's being market driven. It's working backwards from evidence, which is actually what we do in research anyway. From a faculty perspective. So that's actually pretty comforting and consistent and congruent with sort of how we're wired. But yeah, we're looking at, and I won't get them all right, but, we're actually looking at energy quite a bit. We think that there, are lots of technologies that are being developed that allow us to meet the world's growing energy needs, and it's going to take all of them. And we're preparing students across all of our disciplines, not just in science and engineering, not just in business, but we have, hundreds of students that are, participating in what is an evolution in how energy gets sourced and provided and secured through our Ralph Lowe Energy Institute, both at the graduate and undergraduate level. I think that's a forward priority that's very bound up in the history of TCU, but it's also very bound up in the both the history and the future of our economy and Texas as a whole, and really an industry that ensures enduring American competitiveness. So that's an important one. It's also one that I know the Fort Worth Chamber is prioritizing. And so again, working backwards from the marketplace, listening to who our collaborators might be and can be and should be, so that we're actually rowing in the same direction, I think is important. Mobility is another one. We talked about Alliance earlier. Yeah. I think we're, leading the nation in so many ways as it pertains to capturing that opportunity, right? There's some stuff that we can talk about and a lot of stuff we can't talk about. I mean, that's how cutting edge, right? Our efforts are there right now. And so making sure that understanding how mobility is going to affect our economy and the types of companies and jobs that are going to be created and career paths that will be generated for our students is particularly exciting. We also recognize that from a say I used to be in private equity investing. I think I read an article not long ago in one of the business journals that had suggested that North Texas has recently become the number 3 community for private equity investing, behind New York, of course, and just a little bit behind Chicago. So we've passed some of the communities in California and elsewhere. And so that speaks as one example of the growing role of our financial services industry, whether it's banking or technology, and how that's changing the way things are transacted, how wealth is generated and managed and so on and so forth. And so our commitment to finance and specifically financial technology, or fintech, as it's often called, is pretty pronounced. And that's bringing a lot of different dimensions, finance and a variety of technologies and analytics and so on and so forth, across TCU together to prepare graduates to understand not just the dollars and cents of it, but the technological solutions that are under basically the railroad underneath what makes our economy go. And I mean, you could read any number of probably, several dozen headlines just in the last 6 months that are speaking to the thousands of fintech related jobs that are coming not only North Texas, but specifically in our community in Fort Worth and at Alliance. There's a lot of fintech at Alliance as just one example. And so, I mean, there's more of what we're doing in healthcare with TCU Medical School, how we're bringing our entrepreneurship program to operate alongside that, how we're teaching our med students not just to make diagnoses and perform surgeries, but to really be empathetic leaders, empathetic scholars, and the type of people that can really be strong contributors to the community as a whole. So that's 4. I could probably give you a 40, but those 4 jump to mind as things that are very exciting, very important, and also very market driven based upon everything that happens beyond the meets and bounds of TCU's campus here in Fort Worth.
What is as we wrap up on the interview, what is your what do you think is going to be the thing that's going to keep you up at night as you think about moving TCU forward, which also influences the forwardness of the city as well? What do you feel that's going to be?
Yeah, well, hopefully it's a lot of late night basketball deep into the NCAA tournament. That's what I'm hoping.
Yeah.
Here in the near term, I'm really like
we're looking good.
Yeah, they're looking good. But once we cut down the nets, there are other things to attend to. And, for me, that's going to be how do we digest an unprecedented amount of interest in our university? It's probably the best problem to keep you up at night.
Yep.
Way it's like, how do you digest growth? And we have been growing. We talked about that at the top of the conversation, right? We've got over 12,000 students at this point, and there may be some prudent rationale to grow a bit more, but to do it very, very thoughtfully, kind of in the way Fort Worth, as we grow, we're doing it very, very thoughtfully in a way that's right for us, and maybe is a different model than maybe some of the other communities in our region, right? To basically weave all your questions together. Yeah. So
what is what is something that you think you would bring? I guess kind of going with it is like, what is what unique twist do you think you're bringing to the position that is unique to you as you think about it?
Yeah, and I mean, even in the way we grow, right? I think we need to, be thoughtful about how we grow and how we serve our students, both in the classroom and the built environment. Making sure we have the right on-campus experience and the right level of personnel to connect our students to the off-campus experience in our community and beyond. And so, how we do that, I hope will play into some strengths of mine. Like I mentioned, life is random, and I've had a non-traditional career path to this position in many ways, and let's take advantage of that. That circumstance. I mean, I started my career in the private sector. I'm very attuned to what's going on in both business and the surrounding community. And as we grow, as we tackle that challenge, let's make sure that we're listening and learning and collaborating. And my job might be, if nothing else, to translate, the aspirations that are inside the university and connecting those to the aspirations that lie outside the university. And if we can do that, then we are building, a larger pie. We are building, more and stronger career paths for students. We are building the right type of infrastructure and circumstances and leadership for Fort Worth and North Texas to flourish. And if that happens, then everybody wins. And I think everybody's going to win here. And I'm excited about it. And I'm all in on the place and the people. And what a great honor it is to serve in this capacity. And thanks for making some time for me and all you're doing for our community. Right, the narratives that are coming out of what you're doing are connective tissue to people that will be inspired to action. And certainly, if there's anybody that's listening to this that wants to know more about TCU, connect. You have ideas, you have opportunities, you have some candid feedback on how we can get better. I'm not going to be a stranger. I'm not going to be hard to find. In fact, you'll get tired of seeing me.
You're always welcome onto the pod. If there's ever anything coming up, 2 rapid fire questions just for me selfishly. What is a quote or a thing that if I interviewed anyone who worked for you, they'd be like, Daniel always says this. Like, what is a quote that your team or staff have heard you kind of say over and over as you bring them together?
Yeah, TCU is an institution of innovation.
Got it.
We're not going to stand still. We're going to lace them up and we're going to run. We're going to evolve because life is not static. And even though we're an institution celebrating our 150th year, and we're real proud of our past and our present, we know it's going to change a heck of a lot in the next 150 years. And the only way we're able to respond in the best possible manner is to be an institution of innovation.
Love it. Well,
no, I don't have anything. Thanks so much for your time on a Sunday morning to come on and share with us. Yeah, we're always excited to see leaders in Fort Worth and how they come together and work together. So we love that we got to have you on and get to talk.
Yeah. Hey, well, thanks for the time and the opportunity. And if you ever want to run it back, let me know.
That was a great conversation. I love it. It was a lot of things that he brought up, kind of unprompted, that like we talk about consistently. And even talking about, I mean, we've been talking about energy a ton recently. We've been talking about mobility zone. So I feel like you can just tell that a lot of people are on the same page about what needs to be next for Fort Worth.
Yeah, and I feel like some of the questions we were asking was probably, it was good to just see his full lens there, because he's someone who would understand it way even more than we would because of just his day-to-day hours of work, and so his knowledge on Alliance, Texas was exciting, but then also just how he kind of looked at the Metroplex as a whole and how he's really bullish on North Texas, and I share that sentiment, which is why I'm really passionate about our show. I know you're, choose Disneyland or New Zealand or something else, but I feel his sentiment there. But yeah, man, it was a great show.
Yeah. Again, thank you for coming on, and thanks to everyone for listening. Like you said, he's an open book. If you have questions for him, let us know. We would love to have him back on another time to talk more about TCU and Fort Worth and how they grow together.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for listening to the pod. I've really been enjoying these interviews. We'll get back to the normal takes next weekend, as there's a lot actually going on, from Texas A&M expanding their budget on their university. I know you guys have to have something to say about Maddie wanting to fund more for the city hall building, and us being conservative on caring about kids. So let's have that for next week. But everyone have a great time and an awesome week.
Double tap. Now control your life, control your life. Dopamine swipe, dopamine swipe. Follow us like double tap. Now they control your life, control your life.